Good evening. I would like to welcome councillors and members of the public to this meeting of the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole Council. I would be grateful if you could please turn your mobile phones off or switch them to silent setting during the meeting. It is important that everyone present is aware of the evacuation procedures. On hearing the evacuation alarm bell, which will have a constant ring, you should leave the meeting room at once by the way of the nearest signed fire exit route and locate at the front of the town hall. Members of the public and press are permitted to record or film proceedings. Those that do so are asked not to film in the public gallery. The chairman has discretion to terminate any recording if continuing to do so will prejudice proceedings. The council will be audio recording this meeting. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Chief Executive, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Anne Filer, Councillor Chris Matthews, Councillor Mike White and Councillor Lawrence Williams.
Thank you. Any other apologies from the floor at all? Thank you. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Chief Executive, please.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 3. Members, are you happy that I sign the minutes from the council meeting on the 5th of November 2019 as a true and correct record? Thank you. Item 4, Chairman's announcements. Councillors, it is with regret that I refer to a recent death of former Borough of Poole Councillor David Gillard. And I would like to call on Councillor Judy Butt, who would like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colleagues, it is with deep sadness but also with great pleasure that I stand here today to honour the life of past Councillor David Gillard. David was a Poole man to the core and immensely proud of his Poole roots. He was born in 1941 in Poole, christened in the old St George's Church, Oakdale, Poole, now the present Oakdale Library. He attended the local Stanley Green Infants School in Oakdale, Poole. Bit of a pattern here. He married Linda in 1963 in the new St George's Church in Oakdale. They had 4 daughters, followed by 9 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren, all born in St Mary's Maternity Hospital, Poole. He trained locally in engineering and owned and managed the Sturt Garage in Poole for 38 years. As a councillor, David always strived to support his residents, having that genuine common touch for all he met, where he would always, through his gentle good humour, fully connect with people at every level. David was not a tall man, or a slim one, but what he lacked in height, he made up for in his infectious grin and ridiculous sense of humour. For example, he once appeared unannounced at a very posh mayor's charity auction, in full auction porter gear, quite a sight, as he shuffled into the room in wooden clogs, an oversized frayed flat cloth cap, bottle-bottomed glasses dangerously impairing his vision, and khaki brown overalls, the buttons straining against his ample middle. In absolute silence and grinning inanely, he held up a beautiful Poole pottery ginger jar, so all could see the item. A huge maiden bid of £1,000 heard the hammer hit the gavel in record time. David then executed a perfect pratfall, dropping the said ginger jar, it instantly smashing into pieces on the polished marble hotel floor, to the absolute horror and stunned silence of the auction bidders, everyone looking at the successful bidder and the successful bidder looking for the nearest exit. The mayor, in on the joke, quietly advised the traumatised bidders that it was a set-up and no priceless ginger jars had actually been harmed during David's 2 minutes of unforgettable clowning. His silly antics not only opened the mouths of the guests in laughter that night, but their wallets in all the following bids. That's how I remember David. Small of stature, but huge of heart, always wishing to bring a little love and laughter into everyone's life. I asked Linda, David's wife, what she'd like me to say tonight. She let me do the joke. She said to let people know how very proud he was of his family, his local roots, and just being an ordinary man, who, like so many of us in his own way, just want to be part of making things better for all their residents in his hometown of Poole. So this Christmas, as we look forward to joining our families to celebrate this wonderful festive season, please remember David and his family, and remember him as he would wish to be remembered, a true friend and a man of Poole. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Would members rise and join me in a silent tribute to Councillor David Gillard? Thank you, members. Agenda item number 5, public questions. We have a number of questions this evening. The first being Mr. Philip Stanley Watts has a question to put on the provision of trees and the environmental impact. Mr. Stanley Watts, please.
Does it work? Yes. Thank you, Chair. At the time of this year's Air Festival, trees were promised, but nothing has happened yet. So when is the BCP area going to get these trees? And they should be planted in particular areas to enhance the environment and also address the problem of flooding. Also in relation to natural defences, introducing beavers and water voles with soakaways along riverbanks in the BCP area. The report before BCP Council mentions looking into tree planting, but this is not a certainty, merely a range of possibilities.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley Watts. I call upon Councillor Allison to respond, please.
Thank you very much for your question. Work has been going on continuously since the Air Festival this year to identify the most suitable sites for the 240 trees which will offset the emissions from the air displays. Working with the arboreal team, the tourism team and myself have been liaising with schools across the BCP area and are in the process of finalising agreements with those schools that will be receiving trees. The remaining balance of trees that won't be planted at the schools will be accommodated by the countryside team either at Hicks Farm or other nature reserve sites across the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley Watts. The next question, members, is a question from Dr. Martin Price, a question regarding the zero net carbon, which relates to item 9 on this evening's agenda. Dr. Price, please.
Thank you. According to the United Nations Environment Programme Executive Director Inger Anderson, we must now deliver deep cuts to emissions over 7% each year. This means zero net carbon by 2034 at the latest. Quoting again, if we don't do this, the 1.5 degree centigrade goal will be out of reach before 2030, she added. Therefore, the BCP target of zero net carbon by 2050 is not a sufficient response to the climate emergency. Will the Council now set specific policy targets, such as those already proposed to it by Friends of the Earth, to enable all businesses and households to achieve zero net carbon by 2030?
Thank you for your question, Dr. Price. Could I call upon Councillor Rice to answer, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Price. We are very grateful to Friends of the Earth for attending the Council's recent Climate Emergency Senior Managers Network meeting to present their recommendations and also for the comments submitted. The Friends of the Earth publication, Your Climate Action Plan, has been used as the reference for many of the options for action in the draft document that is being considered today. This Council is aware of the urgency for action and is committed in the Climate and Ecological Emergency Declaration to work with partners, businesses and the wider community to set a target date for making the region carbon neutral. Following approval by Council today, I am looking forward to a highly informed place leadership board being established, which will then set an appropriate target date and make recommendations to achieve the target so that BCP Council and the community can lead the way to being carbon neutral as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Thank you. And the last public question this evening is from Dr. Ruth Arnold, but I understand that Dr. Arnold is unable to attend this evening and has nominated Dr. Rebecca Smith to ask the question on her behalf. Dr. Smith, please.
Thank you. I am a GP living in Poole and I'm representing MedAct Dorset. BCP Council is investing £141 million in the fossil fuel industry via the Dorset County Pension Fund. I am aware that you are unable to speak on behalf of Dorset Council, but ask if BCP Council will support fossil fuel divestment. You have declared a climate emergency, and we want to see serious commitment to this. Many councils have passed motions calling on their relevant pension funds to divest fossil fuels. Will BCP formally call on the Dorset County Pension Fund to divest from fossil fuels?
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I'd like to call on Councillor Rice to respond, please.
Thank you, Dr. Arnold. The Paris Climate Agreement aims to limit warming to well below 2 degrees and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees. The recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report emphasised the need to limit warming to the more ambitious 1.5 degree target. We now know that 2 degrees of warming comes with unacceptable dangers to humanity. However, the fossil fuel industry has about 5 times more fossil fuels in its proven reserves than can be used if global warming is to be limited to even just 2 degrees. Despite this, it continues to explore for even more fossil fuels, and this is currently facilitated by investment from pension funds throughout the world. A quote from Jim Yong Kim, who was the president of the World Bank, and this was all the way back in 2012, lack of action on climate change threatens to make the world our children inherit a completely different world than we are living in today. Climate change is one of the single biggest challenges facing development, and we need to assume the moral responsibility to take action on behalf of future generations, especially the poorest. With this in mind, it is worth noting that the Dorset pension scheme is currently worth around £3 billion, and our 4,000 officers that work for BCP, along with all the existing pensioners, will be interested to hear that a significant proportion, around 5% of their pension fund, is invested in fossil fuels. It is also helpful to note that in surveys of pension funds, around 70% of members feel that their pension funds should not be investing in fossil fuels. Since the membership of the Dorset Pension Fund changed in June 2019, divestment and climate change has been pushed up the agenda significantly by myself and Councillor David Brown from Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Going out to consult with members of the pension fund and looking at the responsibility of the Dorset Pension Fund with regards to our climate action steps going forward is also part of the draft climate action plan that is on the agenda this evening. The Dorset Pension Fund will be publishing an investment strategy statement in 2020, which will clearly be an opportunity to to guide investment so that the Dorset Pension Fund is protecting our planet and the future well-being of the people within the scheme at the same time as creating investment.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Thank you, Dr. Smith. The next item, members, is statements to the Council. Melissa Carrington has a statement that she wishes to make on the response to the climate and ecological emergency referred to at item 9 on this evening's agenda. Melissa Carrington. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Extinction Rebellion, Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Councillors, in July we asked you to give the climate and ecological emergency your highest priority and to allocate budgets and resources accordingly. I'm afraid that the action plan shows that our words were ignored. Pro rata, based on other councils' responses, this emergency needs a team of at least 8 dedicated council officers and a revenue budget of at least £750,000 a year, in addition to very considerable capital spending. You cannot manage this on a shoestring. Getting well-qualified staff in place to deliver this must be your utmost priority. You've expressed an ambition. Now please show some true leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carrington. Members, the next statement is a statement received from Mr. Michael Hancock on the response to climate and ecological emergency. Unfortunately, Mr. Hancock can't make this evening, and I would be grateful if the Chief Executive would kindly read out the statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a statement by Michael Hancock. I very much applaud the draft action plan for climate and ecological emergency that is shared with members today and opening for public consultation. In particular, the heading Doing Things Differently, with the introduction of a citizens' assembly and the launch of a decision impact assessment tool to embed sustainability. I would hope that the future engagement strategy will find a way to embrace community-led innovation and that commissioning and procurement practice adapted to support the collaborative approach needed to deliver true local community wealth building through the lens of climate change and the UN sustainability goals more generally. That's a statement by Michael Hancock.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Petitions, members. There are no petitions have been received by the Council. I will therefore move on to item 6. Record of decisions of Cabinet and minutes of other committees. Are members happy to agree to note and receive the minutes listed on the agenda at items 6A to 6L? Thank you, members. Moving on then to agenda item 7, recommendations arising from Cabinet and other committees. If I move on then to minute number 82, the BC Corporate Parenting Strategy, and can I ask Councillor Sandra Moore to introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm sure I don't have to remind members that we are all corporate parents and grandparents, that we take our responsibilities seriously and are involved in making good decisions for all children in care and care-experienced young people. As you know, we have now established a BCP Corporate Parenting Board, and membership includes our young people. This strategy and its 9 principles was created with their full participation. The full strategy was scrutinised at Children's ONS and approved by Cabinet at its meeting on the 13th of November. Our predecessor councils all had their own strategies and policies for children in care, and our new BCP strategy has been based on and developed from them. It aims to create brighter futures for our children and young people, and I ask you to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, and I understand that Councillor Lisa Lewis will second the motion.
Yes, I second it.
Thank you. Can I ask then all members in favour of the motion? Thank you, members. Unanimous?
Just check there was no data.
Can I just check there was nobody against and no abstentions? Thank you. Minute number 84, Q2 Budget Monitoring Report 2019-20. And can I call upon Councillor David Brown to introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just briefly cover, this was detailed at the Cabinet meeting in paragraph 72 of the report, and some members may have looked at that to get the background to this report, but briefly it's about the budget for the new capital project, Environmental Innovation Hub. In early October, BCP Council secured £2.4 million grant funding from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, Coastal Communities Fund, to deliver an environmental innovation hub at Durley Chine. So this is part of the Council's wider seafront strategy programme. The project will contribute towards BCP's ambitions to become a green economy leader by helping to achieve a step change in the reduction of single-use plastics and increased levels of recycling along the Council's coastline. The project will be funded entirely from Coastal Communities Fund grant with no recourse to additional Council funds. So Council is just asked to formally approve the acceptance of £2.4 million Coastal Communities grant funding and amend the capital investment programme for the new project. So the spend is currently profiled as £83,000 in this financial year 2019-20 and £2,316,000 in the 2020-21 financial year, total of £2.4 million.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I understand the leader will second the motion. Thank you. Can I also ask members then, all in favour of the motion? Please show. Thank you. Unanimous. Just check. Any abstentions? Sorry, Councillor Bartlett. Thank you. Nobody against? Thank you very much. Minute number 86, the adoption of the Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole and Dorset Waste Plan. Councillor Margaret Phipps, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This plan has been around 5 years in preparation by previous councils in cooperation with what was Dorset County Council. So it is a legacy issue. The waste plan includes 3 sites in the BCP area, in Herne, Mannings Heath and Canford Magna. All are for the management of residual non-hazardous household waste as refuse-derived fuel or solid recovered fuel, which convert waste into energy, the way forward environmentally. So I propose adoption of the waste plan as set out in minute 86. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. And I understand, Councillor Hadley, you'll second the motion?
Yes, and second the motion too.
Thank you. Can I therefore ask members all in favour to show?
Yeah.
I think that's unanimous. Questions? Those against? Just to check. Thank you very much. Minute number 87, the adoption of Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole and Dorset Minerals Site Plan. Councillor Margaret Phipps.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this plan has been in preparation for around 5 years. Again, a legacy issue from previous councils across Dorset. It includes 2 sites in the BCP area. One is the Roshot Quarry for sand and gravel in Christchurch, and the other is White Pit in Poole for recycling aggregate. I propose adoption of the Minerals Sites Plan as set out in minute 87.
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. And I understand that Councillor Hadley. Second. Thank you very much. Can I ask then all those in favour of the motion, please show. Thank you very much. I think that's unanimous again. And just to double check, those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Moving on then to agenda item 8, the review of the political balance of the Council. Members, the recommendations are set out on page 105 of the agenda. I will deal with the recommendation A, which is in an arithmetical calculation showing the revised overall political balance. And I also propose to deal with recommendation B, which is an affirmation of the current number of seats on each committee. Please refer to Table 2, Column 1. Once this is agreed, I will move on to the other recommendations, and I therefore formally propose recommendations A and B and call on my Vice Chairman to second this proposal.
More than happy to second.
Members, can I ask those all in favour to show? Looks like Jonas. Sorry, those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. Can I call anybody from the floor with regards to any moves on the recommendations C, D and E? Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to propose that the seats on the 3 seats that have been need to be reallocated as I understand, as follows: audit and governance, children's overview and scrutiny, and licensing. And I would like to propose that the seat for audit and governance is filled by the Liberal Democrats, and under item D, that would be Councillor Mike Brooke. Children's overview and scrutiny by the Poor People Party, although I believe that they are willing to allow one of the unaligned members, should they wish to take that seat on their behalf, and the licensing seat to go to the Conservative group. And on item E, the vacancy on the Police and Crime panel, which should also be filled by the Poor People group. They have requested that it's filled by Councillor George Farquhar from the Labour group, and he has agreed to do that should they wish. Thank you. That's the proposal.
Thank you, Leader. Any members? Do you have a seconder? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Howe. Members, any debate on this item at all, please? Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make an amendment to the recommendation that's in front of us. Mr. Chairman, we find ourselves in this position tonight of having to revisit the political balance for the Council for one reason and one reason alone, and it's because 2 of our members, 2 of our councillors in this chamber now find themselves in an unaligned position. Now, this does give rise to the opportunity for the administration and indeed the opposition to seize their seats on the respective boards and panels and take those seats for themselves. Now, whilst this is strictly a course of action that is available to both the administration and the opposition, I do not think that this is the right course of action to be taking in this circumstance. Both of the members that we are discussing, who now sit as politically unaligned, wish, I believe, to remain on their respective panels, and both have, I believe, Mr. Chairman, contributed validly and successfully in those roles. It therefore seems at odds with the spirit of this Council that they be removed from those roles when they wish to continue, just because it gives us some sort of political opportunity. There is, Mr. Chairman, an added dimension that when we are discussing the administration's proposal to seek a full majority control of the Audit and Governance Panel, this does seem at odds with the idea of being open and transparent. It's a very important scrutiny role, and indeed many of the preceding authorities very deliberately did not take a political majority on that panel for that very reason. Therefore, the proposal that I would like to, the amendment to the proposal that I would like to make, Mr. Chairman, is very simple. It's essentially, let's change nothing. Rather than the administration or indeed the opposition use the change in political situation of 2 members to their own advantage to seize power or control, would it not be fairer to agree that those 2 members simply retain their current positions and their vital places on those boards? So to be clear, the recommendation that I would like to make, the amendment that I would like to make to the recommendation is as follows: that Councillor Julie Bagwell remains on the licensing board where she currently is, that Councillor Daniel Butt keeps his position on the Audit and Governance Board, and to be really clear, that does mean that the Conservatives would not take up the extra seat available to them. That does leave the extra place for the Children's Services, which we would recommend that the Liberal Democrats are free to decide their own nomination on that one. The consequence of this, Mr. Chairman, is that it sends a very clear message that we value all the members of this Council, regardless of their political affiliation. The fact that we should use the opportunity of them changing their political situation to punish them doesn't seem right to me, and indeed this proposal doesn't really do anything. It keeps things the same. We've got many important points that we are discussing tonight, including the climate change emergency issues. That should be our focus. Let's give our fellow councillors a continued voice on the panels that they wish to sit on, and not make any unnecessary changes this evening. I would seek a seconder, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Thank you, Councillor Butt. Anybody, any members wish to debate at all? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having listened carefully to what the proposer of the amendment said, I would agree with every word. But I think I would also make one additional point to members, and I'm thinking particularly of the members who have told their residents that they will not be beholden to any political whip, whether that is part of a group or not as part of a group, and that on each decision they will do what is right for the borough. And I'd ask them particularly to consider the name of the committee, Audit and Governance, and to think, what is right? Who should be looking after audit of an administration? Should it be the administration itself, or should it be those that are there to hold the administration to account? Who should be there to look after the governance of an administration? Is it right that it should be the administration itself, or again, those that would look to control that governance and to ensure that it works for all the people in BCP? As Councillor Broadhead alluded to, in the previous Bournemouth Council, the Conservatives were in charge and demonstrably in charge from 2007 with a large majority. And on every day from then, they did not control the Audit and Governance Committee. They ensured that the leader of the Labour group, the minority, was the chairman until he lost his seat in the election, and then arranged to have him brought back so he could sit as an independent, although still obviously very much a member of the Labour Party. We did that as Bournemouth Council because we believe that it is right that audit and governance of a council should not be the responsibility of the administration itself. Should we go ahead with the move that the leader has made, that will be the result. Although there is one member on there who is unaligned, that person, and we all received an email from him saying how proud he was to have been the Unity Alliance nomination for Chairman of Audit and Governance. That, members, Chairman, is just not the right way to do it. So once again, I would ask those members who claim not to be beholden to a whip, who claim that they will do right and will vote according to their conscience on each of these decisions, to accept this amendment and to make sure that the administration isn't the one auditing and governing itself. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Who's first? Councillor Wilson.
I'd just like to say that I disagree with what Councillor Green has said. As somebody who is independent of a whip and has promised to do what is right for his residents, I feel that it's important that we have a balance on there, and I think that it will allow the opportunity of a change of chair to somebody who is purely independently minded and excellent at what he does, and I think that's essential. And I think that you know, it's very rich for the councillor over there to speak of that, because when I was on as a Bournemouth Borough Councillor, there was actually an attempt to stop us from being able to sit on the Standards Committee, meaning that myself and Councillor Bull had to form a group in order to have more responsibility and sit on that Standards Committee. So I think that it's very rich for the Councillor on my right to speak like that. So I am definitely against this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well. I'm surprised what I've heard tonight. I've served 12 years on the Pools Audit Committee as a Liberal Democrat councillor, and that was always dominated by the administration and chaired by the administration. So in some ways I quite agree with Councillor Green, actually. It's best that it's not chaired by the administration and it's not dominated by the administration, as he says it would be. But it wouldn't be. That's not what's being proposed tonight. There's a complete misrepresentation of the proposal that the leaders just made. Even with the proposal that leaders made, there would be 4 members of the administration, Unity Alliance administration on audit, there would be 4 Conservative members, and there would be 1 unaligned member. So where Councillor Green says that should the administration lead it, should it be responsible for auditing and governing itself? No, it shouldn't, and that is not what's being proposed here. So it's a complete misrepresentation of the leader's proposal. I agree with him that we shouldn't, and we're not going to. That's not what the proposal is. So I completely agree with the leader's proposal and who should sit on that, and Councillor Brooke, I think, would make an excellent member of the Audit and Governance Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any further members wishing to speak? Councillor Mrs Green.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought this, the recommendation that we were being asked to consider was actually to do with membership of the panels, but the Cabinet member seems to have let the cat out of the bag, that it's actually to do with the change of chair of the Audit and Governance panel. And I just wonder if we could have some clarity about whether any deals have been done about who should be chairing that panel.
Councillor Mrs Stribley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Wilson let the cat right out of the bag when he said it's all about trying to change the chair. Why would you want to change the chair when you have the most experienced and competent member of this authority chairing that committee with a balance of councillors across it? I have sat on that committee as a substitute member and was very impressed by the level of debate across the board, but extremely impressed with the fair and open way in which it was chaired. The chairman, I would remind you anyway, is elected for a year, so that couldn't change until after the next municipal year starts, unless there is a vote of no confidence. And I can't imagine under what grounds a vote of no confidence could be proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. Councillor Wilson.
I'd just like to come back on that point. There was no, I was not saying...
Members, Councillor Wilson has the right to reply. Thank you.
I have the right to reply. It's...
My understanding is that Councillor Wilson was named.
Yes.
That's correct. So therefore, Councillor Wilson does have the right to reply.
Thank you, and thank you for preserving my rights. No, what I'd like to say is that that was not the insinuation, and there was no cat let out of the bag. It was the insinuation made by Councillor Michael Green around the email being sent about Councillor Stephen Bartlett. We know who he was referring to. And that was the insinuation he made. It's up to the committee to choose the chair. It's not up to me, it's not up to anybody else. But I think that we have an opportunity here to balance that committee more fairly.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any other members wishing to speak at all? Vice Chairman. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for giving me the right to reply as I have now been named, rather than just being the councillor to Councillor Wilson's right, which probably applies to most of us in this chamber. The email to which I referred is one which was sent by Councillor Bartlett. It did say that he was proud to have been the Unity Alliance's nomination for chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee. That is quite clear. That is a matter of fact, whatever other members may choose to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Please. Vice Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chair. I won't be supporting this amendment. When language is used in the Chamber, such as punishment, I seriously doubt that this is the sort of motion which is actually being proposed, so I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Councillor Howell.
Yeah, just as we're talking about facts, the fact is that the chairman currently is a Conservative. The Audit Committee is a committee that deals with history. It deals with assessing the past to see if we can do things better, and a lot of that history relates to 3 councils that were controlled by the Conservatives. So I'm just making that point, and people can draw from it what they wish.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. My name has been mentioned, so I thought I'd better just say a few words about this. I would actually have been proud to have been nominated by any party to be on the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee. So I wasn't differentiating as an independent to any particular party. It just so happened that I was actually nominated by the Alliance, and I was proud to take on the chair if elected. I wasn't. As I understand it, this motion is not actually about the chair, it's about who's the political balance on the committee itself. My overriding concern is one of ensuring that the principles at which we conduct our business, i.e. through the Nolan principles, are adhered to. I believe that this motion should be supported in order to foster and promote those values that we should be working to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Any members wishing to speak? Councillor Lawton.
Thank you. I find it difficult to speak at this motion. I find a councillor who implies that the present chairman of a committee is unbiased or is biased, I find odd. I also find it odd that somebody is implying that previous administrations did not carry out their functions correctly just because they were members of a political party. I find that disturbing and unreal. This motion which we are proposing, we believe, is the best motion for this council. The council should not be audited by its own administration. As Councillor Green indicated earlier on, the previous administrations of Poole, Bournemouth and Christchurch did not audit themselves. They were audited by independent... I'm sorry, they didn't. They didn't in Bournemouth. They certainly, I don't know, I can't categorically say about Poole. I find it disturbing, and I find it difficult to understand why people are trying to do political manoeuvring when it's not totally necessary.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Councillor Howell.
Yeah, I believe that was directed at me, suggesting I'm making implications. I'd just like to say... I would just say...
Councillor Howell, would you be kind enough to sit there?
Chairman, you have decided that if someone is named, they have a right of reply. I'm quite happy to accept that. Councillor Howell was not named. He was referred to, but he wasn't named. Therefore, how does he have the right of reply?
One moment, Councillor. I'd just like the monitoring officers to give us a little bit of advice on this, please. Thank you.
Members, if named in a debate and a comment is made and members want to make a personal statement to correct something that is incorrect or has been misinterpreted, in that can have a right to make a personal statement. That's it. It's not a general right of reply when named, but it's a personal statement on a point of order if they have been named and they've been misrepresented or a factual clarification is required, that's all. So no, it doesn't apply in this case, and I agree. I
ask that you look at the Constitution, because I don't think you have to be named to make a personal statement. I think it's only if you feel that you've been misrepresented.
Councillor Howell. Thank you. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. I just find this rather disturbing. We are responding to a change of alignment of 3 councillors, and it's usual for the council to review the places on committees as a result of that, based on the political balance. That is what we're doing in accordance with the Constitution. So the leader has proposed those changes. We have looked at where it would be sensible for that to be handed on. And I think that's a reasonable and sensible proposal. And I just think there's a mischief making going on, which I don't find helpful. So I will be rejecting the amendment and voting with the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Leslie Dedman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to correct a matter of fact from a previous councillor's speech, that in fact Christchurch had no opposition, so we clearly audited ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dedman. Is there any members now wishing to speak to the amendment at all? In which case, I'll put Councillor Broadhead. Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. I will be very brief, Mr. Chairman. We seem to have got a little bit off track in the discussion, and so I just wanted to reiterate and agree with what Councillor Bartlett was saying earlier on. We are here to do one very simple thing tonight, and it's to look at the who is going to sit on 3 boards in particular. A councillor opposite me talked about mischief making. I would say that the complete opposite is true. If I was stood up here as Deputy Leader of the Opposition trying to seize some opportunity to gain some control that we don't already have, then absolutely fine, level it at us. Actually, the counter proposal that I put forward is that the Conservatives do not take any additional seats that are available, and actually, to the contrary, that we have 2 newly unaligned members and that we leave them where they are. So rather than making any political capital out of this whatsoever, the only people that would actually serve to benefit out of this would be the Liberal Democrats gaining an extra seat on children's services. So what a very sensible amendment that we are making here is that 2 members that are already on the panels stay where they are. I think it's a sensible amendment. I think it's actually apolitical, and actually I think that's what we should be focusing on this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Right. I'd like to now put the amendment to the vote, please. Those in favour of the amendment, please show. Those against? Can I just check that there are no abstentions? No. In which case I will use the Chairman's casting vote, and as I voted against the amendment, I will vote against it as my privilege as the Chairman of this Council. Members, I now move on to the original motion. Can I ask all those in favour to please show? Those against, please show.
Sorry, Chairman, could you ask the members to put their hands up and keep them up? There's 2 just gone up.
Members, could you please raise your hands up and keep them up, please, in order for the officers to be able to count. Thank you.
That's 36.
The voting is again 36, and therefore I will use my casting vote in accordance with the Constitution for the motion. Thank you. Councillor Stribley. Could I ask the monitoring officer to give us advice on that, please?
No, that's not part of the Constitution. I think it's customary in Parliament for that to be the case. But it isn't in the Constitution.
Thank you. Well, members, we'll now move on to agenda item 9, response to the climate and ecological emergency. Could I call upon Councillor Felicity Rice, please?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Yes, I would like to recommend that we accept this draft action plan. This is the response of 6 months' work since the declaration of a climate and ecological emergency. And so it's been 6 months' work with a really dedicated team within the council, learning from other councils and environmental organisations. It has also had 300 members of public inputting into this draft action plan. And excitingly, all departments across the council have also engaged with huge enthusiasm with putting their ideas forward about how their own departments can act on climate change. It is also a plan of opportunity. By acting on climate change, could we insulate all our homes so well that we have no residents in fuel poverty? By acting on climate change, could we make our streets safe again so that children can walk and cycle to school, again without having to worry about injury? This is a plan of opportunity, and I am really looking forward to working with everyone and the public to act in keeping with the climate science and be as ambitious as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Bull, I understand you wish to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to second the motion. I also would like to give my thanks to the officers that have worked on this report, and also to all the members here who voted for the climate and ecological emergency back in July. It was very encouraging to see almost all councillors supporting that motion. This report, of course, is not perfect. There are many ways it can be strengthened, but it is a living document, and that will happen, I'm sure, over the coming weeks and months. There's certainly certain areas I would like to see looked at. Not least of all is the emissions that we get from the annual air show that perhaps we should review. Going forward, I think there's a lot of hope in this report. It was very encouraging to hear Councillor Broadhead giving his support and his understanding that the climate emergency is the most crucial thing that we should be looking at within the council at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Are there any members wishing to speak on this item at all? Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. We've had three people speaking to us at the beginning of the meeting from Friends of the Earth, from Extinction Rebellion and from MedAct. And I think we can sum that up by they would like us to go faster and go harder at this, and it's really important. And when you see the impact of wildfires in Australia and other events going on around the globe, the heating of the planet is accelerating, and we haven't got time to mess about. So I very much welcome this report. I hope all the councillors in the chamber do too. It's a big job for us to do, for the council itself, but also for the population in BCP. We owe it to them, we owe it to future generations, because actually Extinction Rebellion exists because they are concerned about extinction of the species. So we have to be really serious about this, and I, as I say, I hope everyone will join me in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Lawton.
Thank you, Chairman. In principle, we agree with the proposals put forward in this paper. I find it slightly worrying that Councillor Bull implies that the air show should be dismissed and banned. We also find it slightly odd in the proposals of a suggestion of a congestion charge, which I think will destroy the town centres of Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch. But in general principle, we agree with it. We have signed up to the declaration which we made at the first council, and we look forward to seeing these things go through the appropriate committees.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. To echo the comments of the previous speakers, this is one of the most important items we are dealing with, not just in the country, but indeed across the world at the moment, and therefore it does need to take as much focus as possible. And therefore I agree with Councillor Lawton that we very much welcome all and any efforts to really get some grip behind this. One small comment that I would make, and it's a helpful criticism, if you like, about the process, and it's purely that if we are going to tackle this and we are going going to set up council workshops as we have a working party on this, it does seem a little premature to be launching a plan for consultation when that working group has only met once. So I get why we're doing it, I get it needs to remain a focus, but in terms of process for the future, I would helpfully suggest that it would be worth letting that working panel do a little bit of work and then presenting the results of that panel's proposals for consultation. But notwithstanding, obviously something we need to look at in earnest, and I'll be certainly looking for a very key role within the Overview and Scrutiny Board of how we can contribute to this work going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to echo Councillor Boo's thanks to the officers of the Council. I would like to sort of highlight that I'm very proud in this Council in the fact that we have delivered on our commitment to make a report, a recommendation to move forward, a draft, as Councillor Bull says, a living document. And I'd like to feed back from people of my ken, residents within the town, how eagerly they're looking forward to contributing to the public consultation. And I would urge every resident within the BCP conurbation to actually contribute to something which affects us all. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Councillor Leslie Dedman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've been involved in the climate change movement since it started in the 70s, which seems a long time ago now. But as a proud mother and a proud grandmother, I think we owe it to our children and our grandchildren, if we have any, to go ahead with what we're going to do at a pace. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dedman. Right, I've got both Nigel Brooks and Mike Brooke both wishing to speak. So, thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, fellow councillor. I find it very encouraging, the work that the officers with members have put together in bringing this report to us this evening. I also found it particularly helpful that the Bournemouth Echo and their Democratic Services reporter put it to 153 points for recommending tackling climate and ecological problems. To actually present 153 is quite remarkable. I could not think of maybe 20 or 30, but before us we have 153 different options to consider, and I do hope that members will actually consider them very carefully. I've already spotted one which may be helpful to a comment which was made earlier. Investigate providing park and ride sites favourable pricing schedules with secure cycle parking and traffic-free cycle routes from the sites. It's interesting that many cities and conurbations of our size already have effective park and ride services. And the closest I know is certainly at Salisbury, which works very well. So in the recommendations, 153, I just encourage members to go through them and find the ones that they feel important, because it has to be rationalised, it has to be prioritised, and it has to be managed in a very careful way. But I would commend the report to members.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Brooke.
Fine, thank you, Chair. Like my colleague, I would like to express thanks to the officers in this, because it has been an extremely difficult task. The work that's gone in the 6 months since we declared a climate emergency is tremendous when you look at the research, the reading and everything else. So I think we do owe it to our officers in producing this plan, which I certainly welcome. It's inevitable that it will be in some circles controversial, or there will be some controversial points in it, but I think for me there are a number of issues which we really must take forward and take forward very seriously. One is opposition to fracking in this area. We should be proposing a total ban on fracking within this borough and in fact within Dorset as a whole. Secondly, I really welcome the emphasis on introducing energy efficiencies and other aspects to do with climate change grey water and all those sort of things into the planning documents. They are long overdue, and we are in a position with the changes that have been made to the National Planning Policy Framework to be able to set design codes which we ourselves can implement and require our developers to match, as opposed to the lower levels that building regs have. And so I hope that our new local plans that emerges will take this as seriously as we ourselves as councillors wish to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you. Following the general election last week and the majority won by the Conservatives, the party, I thought you might think that, the party with the least ambitious environmental targets, it's come down to councils like us to put the policies in place to ensure the UK does its part to meet the IPCC targets to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees and avoid some of the worst case scenarios of climate change. That's why I'm pleased that our Conservatives here supported this unanimously when we first brought it back in July, and also that you've indicated that you will again today. So thank you for that. I know a lot of hard work has gone into this and a lot of enthusiasm from the officers as well, who I'd like to thank, as well as members of the public who responded in great numbers to help form this plan. I look forward to the first steps of this draft being taken during the consultation, as well as the working group really getting to grips with what we have to do. I look forward to this plan feeding into the BCP local plan, shaping the future of our 3 towns. I look forward to it opening the doors to investors and renewable energy companies to come and develop projects here, knowing that they are welcome. I look forward to hearing from our Citizens' Assembly on how the wider BCP area should be reaching carbon zero. And mostly, I look forward to us showing the UK government how you respond to an emergency.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm quite happy to support the...
Applause for you standing up.
Pardon?
Applause for you standing
Well, there you go. I'm quite happy to support the motion. I just wanted to raise the fact that this is an ecological disaster as well as a climate disaster, and we seem to be talking a lot about trees. I'd just like to quote something from English Nature. They say that English nature, lowland heathland, is a cultural and endangered landscape. It says that they are generally found on acidic soils, which is this area, that they've been around this area for at least 3,500 years, that open heath is rarer than rainforest, and in the UK we only have about 60% left of this area that we had in the 1800s, which means that we've gone from an area the size of Cornwall to an area the size of the Isle of Wight. But this country still holds 20% of the world's acid heathland, and we need to protect them. I'd also say that the Dorset Heaths are some of the best wildlife sites in the country, and that the Dorset Heathlands habitats are considered internationally important, and that in Dorset we've gone from 50,000 hectares in the 18th century to half that size now. And I would like to recommend that in the report we add that we protect the acid heathlands, which are so vitally important to the country and the world that are around here.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Mrs. Stripley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we are all agreed on the need for action to reduce carbon emissions and to help prevent climate change if we possibly can. But I would request that those that are looking in depth at these issues and making suggestions and proposals for our area, that they actually do look in depth at the problems before recommending solutions. For instance, a couple of years ago, I looked at buying an electric car because electric vehicles produce virtually no emissions. So I thought that would be a great thing to do. And then I asked, well, how long would the battery last? And they said, well, it's guaranteed for 5 years. And this was one of the better electric vehicles. But it will probably last 10, right? So could I change it then? Oh no, it wouldn't be worth it. You'd have to throw it away. It would cost more than the car to replace the battery. And the production of a battery for an electric car produces more emissions than driving the average family car for 10 years. So actually, while the electric car on the road is very much more environmentally friendly than everybody's old petrol car, and certainly much better than diesels, it actually, 10 years, you've got to throw it away, and it produced 10 years worth of emissions to make the thing in the first place. So it really doesn't need looking at. That's not necessarily the right answer. So I'm still thinking about which car to go for. I've heard proposals that we shouldn't have the air show. We have a wonderful marine industry in this area, and marine industry produces far more carbon emissions than the whole of the aviation industry. But nobody's suggesting getting rid of Sunseeker or their power yacht, or dealing with the heavy ships that are going around the world. Have people cancelled their cruise holiday or going abroad by airplane? You know, until people actually get to that point, we are not really doing our best. We're paying lip service to it. So I do hope we can make real progress, and I do hope real solutions can be found soon. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. This, whatever anyone thinks, is the most important thing that's actually facing, well, the most important thing facing this council ever, and the most important thing that faces the government ever. And I think one of the dangers in all of this is that, and I'm sure it'll come out in the public consultation, is that there will be people who will be picking on different elements of what's in here and other things that perhaps will get added after public consultation, and picking them apart. So people end up confused, saying, oh, I don't quite know what to do about this or what to do about that. And I think it's really important that we look at all of these possibilities, that the public look at all of these possibilities. You can't just do one and forget the other 158 or whatever, and look at the uncomfortable things which they would do, because quite frankly a lot of this will be uncomfortable for a lot of people. But I really think that this is so important. It's so important that we do something. That we've just had a government elected on by I think 43% on a mantra of get Brexit done. By far the biggest message that we should all be chanting, robot-like or whatever, is get the climate sorted, because it really is that important, and we really need to challenge this, look at the things, and actually start to, act on it as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Bungay.
Thank you, Chairman. I think everybody supports this in principle, and as we've heard, this is a living document. It's going out to consultation. There will be lots of ideas. But I think we have to also face the situation that there is going to be a necessary large financial input from central government. No council on its own is going to be able to carry out every wish of the people financially without big increases in council tax. So the government, if it is genuine in looking at climate change, has to assist local authorities to give what is required. One of the issues we're going to have to face here, we passed the comments earlier about the gravel extraction at the top of Roshot Hill. 120 huge gravel lorries a day coming through the conurbation for the next 20 years. And on top of that, at the lower end of Roshot Hill, the other side of the railway line, there's another gravel extraction proposed. So we're perhaps talking 30, 40 years of, on an ordinary working day, 15 large gravel lorries a day coming through the conurbation, because they're not allowed to go through the New Forest. They're banned from going through certain areas. Ours is the only way out. Christchurch opposed this at the beginning, fought it, but as it's Hampshire County Council, they passed it through. And of course, the conurbation, this side, is going to bear the brunt of all those lorries, 15 an hour coming through, because they can, if they're going west, north or east, they've got to come down through Christchurch and either out onto the 338 and go through Poole, or go up north and west and east. So we have big issues there, and that could go on for the next 20, 30 years. And if we introduce charges, that is going to be a difficult situation with local businesses if they're using that route. So we do have big issues to look at, and that is going to be one of the large ones for the next 20 plus years, because if we are looking at genuinely 2030 to get Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch virtually carbon free, it's not going to be possible unless we can stop lorries like that travelling through the conurbation, and I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bungay. Councillor Howell.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment on Councillor Stribley's point, which was a fair one to some degree. It's a reality that the consumerist model, I think, is not going to solve climate change, in the sense that we cannot expect to change every item that we have which is polluting to a non-polluting item that's going to do exactly the same thing. We have to travel less and use less and recycle more, and that I hope is going to be a strong part of this consultation and paper.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Rachel Maidment.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to be supporting this today. My 6-year-old son is currently learning about climate change in school, and he is challenging me every day, the decisions I am making and the actions I am taking. And I am proud to be standing here today to support something where I can report to him I am going to be making a difference. I also want to note that I'm really excited to be working with young people and engaging them, because it is their future that we are fighting for. It is their future that matters. So I'm looking forward to taking this consultation out and speaking to the young people throughout our conurbation.
Thank you, Councillor Maidment. Any further speakers at all? Councillor Diane Butler.
Yes, as you know, initially I voted against this climate emergency for the sole reason that I think it's very over-ambitious. And although the plan has a lot of worthy points, which I agree with, considering we've got 153 points, I'm just wondering how many of the public are going to really think about all those points, how much notice we're going to take of them when they answer to those points, and they will be very varied. And I feel that we've also got to balance other priorities like a big population, housing pressures, and we've got to think about those things in relation to this. So really that's what worries me. It's a very complex situation, and it will have an impact on quite a few people. But as I say, it has some very worthy points, but it is a very, very big piece of work.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Ball, I think you've already spoken. Right, yes, thank you.
I just wanted to say that although I would very happily stop the air show, it's not in my gift to do that, and that will be obviously in consultation with other members and the public. So there are no plans immediately, unfortunately, to cancel it today.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Rice, did you wish to sum up at all? Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to thank Councillor Stribley for her comments about the electric car. They're certainly not a solution to everything. And I would just like to recommend trying an electric bicycle, because I find them amazing. Electric tricycle. It's a joke, it's a joke. The challenges ahead cannot be underestimated. And thank you for all of the comments that everybody has made today. They have all been noted and they will all be taken to the working party going forwards. But the benefits of creating positive change will also be life-changing for our children and the young people in our community already and for the future generations. We want to be a council that is leading the way when it comes to thinking about the environment in everything we do for all our residents, and that includes creating a thriving green economy and green business development. I look forward to welcoming all climate-friendly initiatives because, as Councillor Rigby says, they will be supported in BCP no matter how small or how big they are. And I look forward to taking this forwards.
Thank you, Councillor. It's been well debated this evening. I'll therefore put the proposal to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Thank you, members. Abstentions? Thank you. Nobody against? Thank you very much. That motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 10, the calendar of meetings for the municipal year 2020-2021. I move approval of the draft calendar of meetings as circulated with the agenda, and I seek a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any debate? Councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to note that today we committed to a consultation to ensure that we are taking clear action to address the catastrophe of climate change. I would urge all committee chairpersons to reflect on this commitment and consider the impact of meetings being held which will require travel during the rush hour. This causes us to add to the congestion for our residents and increase emissions across the conurbation. So I'd like to ask that chairpersons consider this when placing the times of their meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Maidment. I understand that that is within the committee chair's brief to align starting times as they so wish. Thank you. Any further debate? In which case, can I put it to the vote? All those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous. Thank you, members. Agenda item 11, notice of motions. There are no motions received by the Council for this meeting. Agenda item 12, questions from councillors. Councillor Diana Butler, I understand you have a question to put to the Councillor Mark Howell on the state of Poole Town and accessible public toilets. Councillor Mrs Butler.
Yes. Visitors to Poole have commented on the poor state of the town and lack of public toilets. Poole Quay is a major asset for the local economy, including tourism, business, fishing, boating, industry, events and recreation. If we as a council are striving to improve our communities and increase the viability of our towns, can I request that accessible public toilets are provided for Poole Quay?
Councillor Howe.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Butler. A review of public toilets at Poole Quay was carried out and approved by the previous Poole Cabinet in February 2016. Following this review, 2 council-owned toilets were closed, Old Orchard and Watch Station facilities. At this point, a community toilet scheme was introduced with 6 toilets in the town centre area. Along with other then opposition councillors in Poole, I opposed closure of the toilets. The toilets at Old Orchard were in poor condition due to antisocial activity, but I did not have confidence in the community toilet scheme. We are committed to improving the offer for visitors to Poole Quay. Since the May elections, the Unity Alliance administration has refurbished and reopened the toilets at the Watch Station. Having visited the toilets this morning, I can confirm these toilets are accessible, including a separate disabled toilet and a ramp up to it. The privately owned toilets at Dolphin Quays remained open to the public during this period as part of an ongoing planning obligation for the development. There used to be public toilets on this site. When the building was constructed, it was a planning obligation that it included toilets that would be available to the public 24 hours a day. Following regular claims of vandalism, the owners of the building, not the original owners, applied for a variation to this condition. During the tenure of the previous pool administration, a decision was taken by the planning department against the advice of environment officers to relax this condition, and as a result the toilets are more than often than not closed to the public. Attempting to reverse this decision would be costly and may not be successful.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Mrs Butler, did you have a supplementary question at all?
Can I just confirm where the toilets are that you say are open now?
Yes, they're right next to Pool Bridge, the old Pool Bridge, by the Coast Guard station, actually integrated into it.
Thank you. Members, we've also received a question from Councillor Karen Rampton in relation to the green waste services.
Thank you, Chair. Residents in Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch who choose to subscribe to the garden waste service will from 2020 be asked to pay £46 for one bin. In Poole and Christchurch, residents will put their green waste into a 240-litre bin, but residents in Bournemouth will pay the same amount for the use of a 140 bin. Would the portfolio holder for the environment agree that the principle of providing equitable services and charges across the BCP conurbation is a necessary and fair course of action? And would the portfolio holder agree that the charge for Bournemouth residents for the green waste service is inequitable and penalises them? And what does the portfolio holder intend to do to rectify this injustice?
Councillor Rice.
Thank you for the question. In September 2019, BCP Council's Cabinet approved a paper that considered options for aligning the 2020 garden waste collection service to offer some parity to residents across BCP Council. This was also discussed at length in overview and scrutiny. There are currently several service differences, not just the bin sizes, but also service length for Christchurch residents and variations in service price, discounts and incentives offered. The changes that were made was to align the annual garden waste service to £46 per household for one bin. The pro rata of the Christchurch service collection fee for 2020 was at £37.65 per household to reflect the service length from April to December 2020. And the retention of the current multiple bin options for Bournemouth residents was retained at a rate of £60 for two 140-litre bins and £80 for three 140-litre bins. For Christchurch and Poole residents, this was at the full one bin price if they wanted an extra bin, so that was £46. There have been questions about a bin replacement programme to swap Bournemouth's 140-litre bins for 240-litre bins. However, this would incur a capital cost of £289,000 plus delivery cost. There have been suggestions that residents would pay for a bin themselves. However, the operational complications of having additional self-funded bin swaps was likely to lead to increased service disparity and collection difficulties, and so it was decided that this wasn't going to be possible for the moment. The other thing to consider is that the government is doing a new waste strategy, and it may mean that in the future green waste will have to be collected rather than at the moment it is optional for residents to opt into. And so it was decided that it would not be sensible to be spending £290,000 replacing all of the bins in Bournemouth when this review was going on and will be coming to a head over the next year or two. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Rampton, did you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you, Chair. I thank Councillor Rice for her answer. I would like to propose that residents in Bournemouth from 2020 pay a reduced charge of £26.83 for one bin, which I believe is a proportional amount. And this could be for a couple of years until this review that you mentioned is carried out. I will leave the portfolio holder with that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rampton. Did you wish to reply, Councillor Rice?
Yep. Just to highlight that there are several services that are not aligned at the moment. So, for example, food waste is not aligned across the three areas. So we are taking it sort of in realistic step-by-step processes. But your comments are appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Members, that brings us to the end of proceedings for this evening. I'd just like to say before I close the meeting to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And now the meeting is closed, I would be very pleased if you'd join me in the Phoebe room for some Christmas cheer. Thank you.